All right. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. We're seeing everybody coming into our virtual session for today, Talent Views Webinar Wednesdays. And I just wanted to welcome everyone. We're also streaming this via Facebook Live, so I can see everybody coming in. Welcome, welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I just wanted to say hi to those that are coming in. I can see our attendees coming from different companies, different roles. Please note that you have a chat button below. So maybe as people are starting to join us, I'd like to discuss our Zoom tabs. Just in case it's the first time for some people to be using Zoom or not yet as familiar with the buttons, I'd like to direct your attention to the buttons that are available to you. All right. So on your upper right, you'll see that there's an option for you to expand your view. If you're not so happy with the size of your screen and you'd like to make that a full screen view, you can do so on the upper right side. And then you also have an option to raise your hand. If you have any questions, that's going to be at the bottom part of the screen. And you'll also have a Q&A button. So bottom part again, there's a Q&A button. Every time you have a question, for any of our panelists today, I'll be happy to pick up that question and share it with the rest of the group. So whatever we're sharing to you today, you will get a copy of the speaker video and presentation slides. So please don't worry about it. You don't need to take a screenshot of everything. We will give you a full copy of everything we will be sharing today. So that's the webinar recording and presentation slides after 24 hours. All right, so I'll jump straight in. I can see that everything's going on quite nicely. Saying hi to Iris, to Jocelyn, who are saying hi on our chat. Hello, good morning, I believe. It's morning on your side of the world. So just very quickly, I wanted to run through our agenda for today. So just 3 main points in the next hour. We want to talk about how do you amplify your culture, especially during a pandemic, especially during a time where people are adjusting, maybe working from home or working remotely and not 100% at the office. We will also want to talk about how do you build a connected workforce? Can you really be connected even if you're not face-to-face? Is that possible, especially now with different generations? Some people are saying that there will be people who enjoy technology and will be very comfortable in this setup, but there will also be people who are very new to this setup and may not adjust well. So how do we adapt to that? How do we adjust? And of course, lastly, especially for our viewers and listeners who are in organizations, leading their teams, managing their people, how do you engage them during this time? How do you keep your culture and your values alive even when you're not face to face? So whatever you're thinking, if you feel that you've come into a very valuable insight, you want to share that on social media, I also want to invite you to use the hashtag Webinar Wednesday or hashtag TalentViewLearning. So we definitely love to continue this conversation even after the webinar for all those who are interested. Okay, so let me now go through just very quickly introducing TalentView. If this is your first time to hear about TalentView, wanted to share with you our cheesy tagline. Just bear with me very quickly on this. We always believe that it's two parts, right? Getting employers noticed and loved. I believe in this so much that you can't be a company that just is noticed. You can't be a company that people know about, but you're not loved. You also have to take care of that second part where your employees love you. You're not worried so much about attrition, people resigning. You want these two to come together. You're a company that everybody knows about, but you're also a company that people love and want to engage in, stay at, and really be a part of. And the way that we're helping organizations do this at TalentView is across 3 areas of employer branding. The first one is employer strategy. How do you create a people strategy that engages them, that allows you to express your values and allows people to live out those values? The second is design. So how do you prettify, beautify everything you're doing on social media? So we have a team that manages communities, a team that takes care of graphics, video production, to help you communicate and connect with your talents better. And the third and final piece is technology. So what are the technologies today that help you to maximize your efforts and just really make use of all the platforms that you have within your organization? And for today, this particular webinar is in partnership with Workplace. So we love Workplace. For those that are hearing about Workplace for the first time, if we can move on to the next slide, where we're showing just screenshots of Workplace. Workplace is a solution of Facebook, but designed for companies, designed for organizations. So imagine having a Facebook, but it's just purely your company. There are no relatives, there are no friends, there are no ads. All the data is privately and securely owned by you. So that's what Facebook has built through Workplace. And whatever we're sharing today through the panel, whether you're a user of Workplace or not, you will be able to apply these. But of course, we just wanted to say and give a shout out to our partners at Workplace for making all of this much easier and possible. All right. So for those that are just coming into the webinar, there. I think we're back on. Just wanted to do a quick check if you guys can hear me, Lawrence or Ram. All right, great. All right, so as I said, this is me. Feel free to connect with me. I'll be sharing my details as well later on. And now I want to introduce our first panelist from the Talent View team. He's been working with customers to make sure that collaboration and culture are rolled out seamlessly, even during this pandemic, even while we're all working virtually. Let's all welcome to this webinar Wednesday, Lawrence Villanueva. Lawrence?
Thank you very much, Ange, for the introduction. And again, thank you everyone for joining us today. I can see familiar names here. We have Rexy from Pioneer Adhesives. We have Jojo, who I invited over LinkedIn. And we also have a couple of clients. So good morning or good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time today. So as a quick background, I've been working in the HR industry for more than 10 years already. And the first half has been spent collaborating with recruiters and organizational development leaders in terms of making sure that they get the right people on board. And before they promote someone, we also help them make sure that they already have the right skills in place to be successful in the future role. Now, the other half has been spent with Talent View. And this time it's really about identifying why people stay, why people join, and what are the potential reasons why your employees would leave. And then most recently, we've also partnered with Workplace, and now it's really designed to connect everyone in the organization and build that culture that's designed to last, regardless of the difficult times that we're experiencing at this point. So just a very quick background. In terms of Workplace, Anne just mentioned already earlier that Workplace is one of our partners, but the reason why it's very much successful and highly embraced here in the Philippines is because it's a platform that Filipinos use every day. So think of it again, just like your Facebook, but this time it's really designed for enterprise application. So you all have the features that Filipinos already know and love every day. So if you think about that kind of transformation, there's almost no training required, knowing that more than 80 million Filipinos are already using the platform, and these are some of the features that they use every day. You have your chat, search function, so you no longer need to go through your email list every day, deleting some of the messages that you shouldn't even have been copied to anyway. You also have your news feeds, where you get information around what's happening in the organization. You also have your groups, which I would really consider as the lifeblood of Workplace, knowing that all of the things that needs to get done is happening in this particular area. And then lastly would be profiles. if you need to collaborate with someone within the organization, regardless if, let's say, you have 50 or 100,000 employees, then you can easily do a quick search, see their profile, review their profile, and with a few clicks of a button, you will be able to start on a voice call or a video call to get that conversation going. And then we've been helping a lot of organizations the past 6 months in terms of adjusting to the new situation. And the journey of transformation is very much simple. It really starts with using the platform as a way to communicate and keep your employees informed. So everyone is really worried, especially the last 6 months. And the very first priority that we would normally encourage our partners is to strengthen your communication practices. And it's really about making sure that all of your employees are informed ahead about the things that are happening in the organization. You also have collaboration. So it's a place where work gets done. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if we're all working apart, the business in the whole world would stop. So it's essentially a place where you can run your training programs. It's a place where you can drive your culture and values. And then lastly, we also talk about automation. And later on, we'll be talking about this a bit more. But essentially, it's really designed to make the lives of your employees easier. So instead of sending out so many emails or instead of completing so many forms, there's also an opportunity for you to automate certain processes, knowing that less is more. And that's what we're seeing out there, at least for all of the organizations that we work with recently. And sure.
Me there. Thanks so
There we go.
much, Lawrence, for that introduction. If you have some questions for Lawrence, please don't hesitate to just click on our Q&A button. And before we go into those pressing questions, I also wanted to take the time to introduce our next panelist, who is formerly the Chief Workplace Officer of Aboitiz. So let's all welcome into this virtual session, Ram Reyes. Ram?
Okay, thank you, Ange. Hello, good morning, everyone. So I've also seen audience from Misamis Oriental. So maayong buntag sa inyong tanan. Okay, so as Ange mentioned, I was the Chief Workplace Officer in Aboitiz. So basically, I was in charge of the whole implementation end-to-end strategy of how we roll out Workplace in Aboitiz. But now I'm with Talent View, and with that, currently I handle company-wide implementation of still Workplace within small to enterprise organizations. So on the next slide, previously Lawrence shared with you the high-level features of Workplace, and on my end, I'll be sharing with you the actual experience of using Workplace in the community of our organization perspective. So I'll be sharing with you my experience with Workplace in Aboitiz. First of all, we call Workplace Agora in Aboitiz. It's kind of like the own branding of Aboitiz with Workplace. It stands for Aboitiz Group Online Resource Application. So in short, it's Agora. And our way of getting people in is Gora na sa Agora. So if that makes sense.
Nice.
So yeah, so it's a place for stories, productivity, and a thriving Aboitiz community. So basically, everything that's happening within the company is hosted and shared inside the Workplace community. So Lawrence shared a few functionalities a while ago, but I'll share with you now the four functions that were critical in terms of the rollout of Workplace in Aboitiz. The first one would be groups. As Lawrence mentioned, it's really the core of Workplace. It's really the heart of everything that's happening in our Workplace. It's where you do your activities. It's where you collaborate with your team members, where you do file sharing, and even host events and live streams, which leads me to the next bullet, which is a function of the live stream or live broadcasting. It's our way of how our leaders communicate to the rest of our organization and discuss different topics. For example, with this one, the Aboitiz values. It depends if it's a weekly thing or a monthly thing. As long as the leaders get to communicate with the team members because it's real time, you get to comment and react at the same time as your leaders speak with you. And then this is also where the town halls are made and actually live events, especially now in this time of pandemic. And then the next one would be integrations. In Aboitiz, there are a lot of different tools as well aside from Workplace. And the important thing that we have noted is that Workplace doesn't replace really all those systems and those tools. But Workplace is there to complement these systems and the tools that we currently have. Um, Back then in Aboitiz, we also have this mindset that if we ever will be getting new systems and tools, we think of how we will embed Workplace into that process or into that system. So it's really the heart of also one of the critical functions of Workplace. So integrations would vary from the integration of G Suite or Microsoft 360 in some other cases. And aside from that, the use of chatbots. So as Lawrence mentioned, the automations give much more ease and seamless collaboration with the rest of your organization as well. And then the last bullet here I placed is champions. It's not really a critical function that is innate or within the Workplace interface or platform, but we feel that the champions are very, very critical in terms of running out Workplace in your community because they would help you reach out to the rest of your organizations and have that touch of humanness in a way of the contents and the processes that you will be sharing inside the platform. So they are the key or they are the heart that will uh, intensify or reiterate the culture and communication within your platform. On the next slide, I'll be sharing with you the different types of campaigns and initiatives that we run to enhance or strengthen the Aboitiz culture and engagement, starting with this two initiatives for social causes and culture strengthening. So the first image that you can see is an initiative called First Name Culture Basis. So similar with Talent View, we believe in a flat organization. So we rolled out this culture of say or of communicating with people by their first name. Some, especially here in the Philippines, some people are afraid to call, especially the leaders with their first name. So usually call them by boss or ma'am or sir. But when we rolled this out inside Aboitiz Agora, people started communicating more, like especially with Aboitiz family, we call them by their first name, like Carlos or Sandro, and that really broke down the barrier within different communities and business units in Aboitiz. And then the second one here is the One Aboitiz Acoustic Night. So this is a sample event that we done in the pandemic. It's paying tribute really to the frontliners and gathering everyone inside the live stream capability of Workplace. And then the next one and the second one is the HR functionalities or functions. So all HR activities were also migrated inside Workplace, even with the payday announcements, so like this one, may sahod na. And that way you get to have conversations with your team members as well, because of course, who wouldn't be happy with may sahod na, right? And people announcements, the new hires, transfers. So you get to welcome people instantly and feel feel welcome. And then the last part would be inside Agora. We also rolled out the No Shade Challenge. So this is really fostering the employee engagement inside the Aboitiz community. This is the No Shade Challenge. I think it's in between November in a way. But here, all from different roles, from different levels and different locations of Aboitiz, people joined, and not only limited to the gender of male, but there were also female who didn't cut their hair for a long time. And all the proceeds from this challenge were actually donated to a social cause for the COVID-19 frontliners. And then the last one would be a celebration, of course, inside Workplace. It's important that aside from the work perspective, you also get to celebrate and reward your employees. And from then, it was also important for us to involve the Aboitiz family members, so they will be more humanized and they will be more approachable from the team members. And coming from that, on the next slide, I'll share with you how the leaders were involved in the implementation of Workplace, starting with the first one, which is the visibility. So a simple post like this for a tree planting activity, even if it doesn't have an emoji or an actual photo, if the leaders would post just so that they can get the pulse of the employees and make them feel like, hello, I am here, I am with you, and I am celebrating with you in this social cause. And then the simple one, like a happy workversary, because in workplace you can actually see the workversary of your teammates and your leaders, and you can greet them, especially if they've been in the company for a really long time already. So you get to see their achievements and congratulate them through the workplace. And then the second one would be the breaking down of barriers. So as you can see here, this is a sample of how we really break down the silos inside the Aboitiz community within workplace. So in the groups, regardless of our role or function or our gender even and our level, we get to communicate inside the groups of workplace. And this one, we actually celebrated our maintenance team, like janitors, workers, and we put them inside workplace. So whatever our culture within the employees, we also make sure that we bring it down to the rest of the organization so that we're all in one area or one page. And then the last one would be feeling the pulse of the employees from the CEO perspective up to the team member staff. So showing personality really behind that leadership role or job title and actively participating in the engagement activities. And through this fun challenges, you get to spark conversations between your team members actually. And, make them feel welcome and that they are being heard. So there, that actually wraps up the sharing of my experience in Aboitiz and how workplaces help us be one Aboitiz. So over to you, Ange.
Thanks so much, Ram. That's so interesting. You're saying even if it's just an announcement on salary, that's already gonna get people engaged and start collaborating, right? So it
Yes.
seems like it's easy, but I know that a lot of our viewers right now find it difficult also to maintain that culture and maintain that collaboration during this time. So we're now gonna jump into that panel discussion. And the first question I'm going to ask is actually for our participants today. So let's run a quick poll and let's get the pulse of everyone in the room. How are you rolling out these announcements? What are you currently using to collaborate with your team members? Please check all that apply. There's a pop-up that's gonna come up in your screen. So are you using messenger apps like maybe FB Messenger, Viber, WhatsApp? Are you using video conferencing tools like Skype or Zoom? Are you still on email? It's not a bad thing, but just wanted to know. And if it's others, just please feel free to click on others. All right, so we'll give everyone a few seconds to just check all that apply. And I hope you guys are enjoying either coffee, tea, or water as you are in this webinar Wednesday hosted by TalentView. All right, so let's get all our responses and let's see where that is. All right, so 75% are now using Messenger and chat apps. That's really interesting because in a corporation organization setup, in a way that's a bit more informal, that's not licensed by the company or authorized by the company, but it seems 75% are collaborating through messenger tools. 75% are also using video conferencing tools. So maybe like Zoom or Skype or maybe even Workplace. We're now getting more accustomed to video. And that's a great thing because before bandwidth was not so good that we couldn't really run videos. But now I think because of everything going on, videos are easier to come by and people can jump into conference type of call. There's still 65% that are using email and about 20% that are using other tools. Thank you very much for participating in that first poll. All right, so we'll jump into the questions. Again, a reminder to everyone that's just joined us, there is a button below for Q&A. So if you have any questions on the slides that have been shared by our panelists, Lawrence and Ram today, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll get the ball rolling with my first question for you guys. So what's your take on technology? We're seeing that our audience is picking up on messenger tools. Is that here to stay or is that just happening now? I'll start with Lawrence. Should companies adjust or employees adjust to this entire use of messenger tools? Lawrence?
Well, yeah, thank you for that question, Ange. And maybe I'll answer this coming from my experience. After talking to close to 100 organizations, HR leaders, comms leaders over the past 6 months, And one of the common themes that I'm at least hearing out from them would be the number of systems and applications that their organizations have been, trying to roll out. But on the course of our discussion, we eventually realized that there's this thing, or there's a potential concern, which is what we call digital fatigue, or application overload. And one of the main reasons why employees would almost always revert back to the platforms that they're already using is because it's so much easier to use. You have Viber, Messenger, and it's something that you essentially use to connect not just with your colleagues, but now it's also a place where it's essentially a place that you use every day to connect with your loved ones, um, on a daily basis. So that's number one. Companies are slowly realizing that there's this thing that we call digital fatigue, and that's something that we need to avoid. Knowing that a lot of the employees are slowly adjusting. We're now done in the react stage back in March, but now people are slowly adjusting, and these are some of the realizations that they've been sharing with us, at least over the course of our conversation. And an average coming from again the conversation that we have, companies would tell us that they normally have around 10 to 15 applications. So can you imagine if you're going to add an additional layer or an additional application that people would need to use, then it might as well be something that they're already familiar with. So my answer to this is yes, definitely. Companies would need to adjust. Companies would need to redefine the employee experience and how people would collaborate. But at the same time, we need to watch out for these things, knowing that if we don't set the tone, or if we don't drive the changes within the organization, Filipinos are very resourceful. So with or without IT's permission, they would go to Viber, they would all go to Messenger, even Facebook groups, which is totally fine. It's something that we can use to get by. But now that we're adjusting, and now that we know the reality, and the gravity of the situation, we need to plan things out much more carefully to avoid any of these risks, of the risk that I've shared.
Thanks, Lawrence. That's a really great point. You're saying that I would say companies need to adjust more, because that's also happened to me. I don't know from everyone's experience here, right? Where you can't locate a file because you can't remember san ko nga ba yun sinend? Viber ba? Messenger? Did I send it on email? I'm sure that's happened to us one way or another. So we've got
Still
a question
happens
coming
on my
in.
side.
Yes, still happens, right? So the more the
Sometimes, yeah.
organization plays an active role, I guess, on the tools that are needed by the company, people will adjust to the company if the company plays a more active role. So we have a question coming in, and maybe it's good to ask Ram on this one. The greatest problem we're encountering right now in our organization is real-time communications because of technical infrastructure, specifically the bandwidth that is allotted, which contributes to unstable connection. So I guess this is tools where, it's mandated by the company, but the person can't really access or properly use it because of the bandwidth limitations. How and
Mhm.
when can we employ synchronous and asynchronous systems of communication in organizations? What's your experience here, Ram?
So it's actually a common problem, I think, especially here in the Philippines. We really
Right.
have bad infrastructure. Sorry to say that.
Of course.
But yeah, I think when the pandemic hit us, we were really forced to adapt to the digital age, and we really couldn't do anything about it because we're all stuck in our homes. Even if we go to the office for skeletal, the bandwidth is still isn't there. And from my experience with Aboitiz, we have plants in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and the internet there is as well worse than the internet here in Manila.
Correct.
So
Correct.
it was really hard for us to reach, especially the plant workers, the maintenance teams, because they wouldn't also have access to devices, much more internet. So it's important for you to understand the current situation that they're in and how you can work things out with your HR teams as well and corp com team. So if the internet there is really not really working for each of the employees to log in workplace, then maybe have a centralized screen where they can see communication announcements, events and they can watch as a group. That way, you will save bandwidth in a way. And reiterating what Lawrence has mentioned earlier, that the companies should also adjust in this times. Um, so it's providing the needs of your employees. And the employees don't just need the right tools, and of course taking care of the benefits, but it's making sure that they have the right equipment for their work. And one of those is the infrastructure and bandwidth. So really adjusting to them and understanding how you can provide for them more, and adjusting some of the budgets in a way. So that's from my personal experience in terms of this one.
Interesting, interesting. Thank you, Ram. So what you're saying also is that when companies mandate certain tools, let's not try to recreate the wheel and give our employees very complex tools to work with. Let's try
Yes.
to work with tools that they already know how to use, or maybe
Mhm.
tools that they're quite familiar with. So I see this a lot. There are companies where they know that their people are familiar with Zoom, so they actually subscribe to Zoom. Or they know their people are familiar on Facebook, so they actually subscribe to Workplace because Facebook is like Workplace in terms of functionalities. So we've got more questions. This is really exciting to speak. Questions are coming in, right? What about people who are non-techie? So there's this comment from our participants. What if you're a leader and of course you want to engage your employees, but you're not that tech savvy, right? So what change management strategies will work when you're implementing Workplace or any other tool for that matter, if your leaders are non-techie, but you want to start using a platform for the first time? Anyone wants to pick this up? Lawrence or Ram?
Sure. So let me start by saying hi. I know that question came from Rexy. Hi Rexy. Thank you for joining us today. And normally there would be like two ways to approach it, but from an overall perspective, we always start with the why. So if the why is very clear, and it could be as simple as driving leadership visibility, making sure that employees are informed and engaged, your leaders would be so much more motivated to drive the change themselves. So from an overall view, the why should be very clear, along with the objectives in terms of running the platform. Regardless if it's Workplace or regardless if it's any platform, I would say that the why should be very clear so that your leaders would be inspired to be the one to drive that change. And then from that perspective of yours, where you mentioned that what if they're not tech savvy, um, I'd say that this is a common scenario that we are also encountering. So there would be it's important for us to define the key activities that would be expected for your leaders to warm up. So for some businesses,
Mhm.
it could be as simple as a live feed. It will not take so much of their effort. Just two clicks of a button will already allow them to send that message, regardless if your organization has 50 or 100,000 employees. And from there, they would already be able to see the impact of um, of the platform that they're trying to change. And one of the most interesting stories that we've seen on Workplace is the CEO of Grab recently did a live feed of his son learning how to use the bike. It's not work related. It's not something that's really intended for work to be for something to be shared at work. But now that we're all working remotely, his caption mentioned, or he mentioned in the group, that if we're all working now in the office, I would miss this particular moment with my son. So again, it's humanizing the experience. And again, it just took him two clicks of a button to start that live feed. The number two, there would be a series of activities as well that's really designed for them to slowly adapt to the platform. So at the first, I would say at the first 30 to 60 days, and that's something that we will define up until such time that using Workplace is already part of the daily activities for your leaders. So we'll start slow, we'll warm them up, and make sure that they're able to see the impact of using the platform itself. And I would say that what we're realizing, especially for leaders who would say that they're not techie, would be um, it's really not about the number of likes that you receive on a certain post, but it's really about the number of likes that you give and the influence that you're able to create using the platform. So if we're able to relay that message, I think things get more exciting for them. and things essentially gets more exciting for your employees at the same time.
Nice. Thank you, Lo. What I got there was really a golden piece of advice, right? Just be human. Know your why,
Yep.
but just be human also because anyway, everyone you're connecting to, even if you're using technology, they're also human. So whatever you can do to connect with them is gonna be really helpful to get the ball rolling. Ram, did you want to add to that as well?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add, just the simplicity of teaching them on actually how to use a platform. So you go back even to your household. Your parents might not know how to use Facebook or Viber or Zoom. And as a kid or her child, and you get to teach her or him how to properly navigate the platform. So within, if you translate that into the work perspective, your project team or from the HR or the corp team should actually teach them really how do you even click this button, what happens if I click this one, what happens if I click the live feed, who will see this. So just understanding the simplicity of the platform and the implications if ever I'll be posting something. So what's the effect and the impact to the rest of the organization if I say hi, a simple message like hi to the rest of the people. So it really gravitates, even if it's just a simple thing. It's them understanding the value of the things that they do as leaders to the rest of the organization.
Right. There's no harm in trying, right? Your phone's not gonna explode if you accidentally type a message that
Right.
has an error or something. You can just start with a simple hi and get engagement going from there. And I guess just to add also, the timeline will vary in the same way that some people learn faster on technology and adjust faster. The timeline could probably range from anywhere between weeks to months for people to adjust. But the important thing is that everyone's moving together and engaging in a unique and I would say secure platform also, and not really spread out, because I've seen this in other organizations where some are on Viber, some are talking on Messenger, some are talking on WhatsApp, and really there's no cohesion there, so everyone isn't moving in the same direction. So Ram, what you're saying is that eventually things become more intuitive also. People start to learn more as they use more. So those are really good points. So I'm gonna jump into a quick insight that's shared by HRD Asia when it comes to cost cutting. So if we can move on to the next slide, it says 70% of organizations report that the main cost cutting measure they plan to use is more effective use of technology. So I wanted to drop this on here because we're saying it's not about having more technologies also, but having an effective way to use the right technologies as you carry out culture and engagement in your organization. So let's move on to how to increase that connection. The questions are really coming in and they're really interesting questions. So let's get a pulse again from our audience and let's start this conversation by asking a poll. Let's ask, what is your current involvement in your organization's collaboration and culture building efforts? So feel free to respond. Are you in HR leadership? Are you helping out with employee engagement? Are you planning and coordinating events, activities? Are you communicating your brand? Are you a functional leader or are you in a different role? So please feel free to answer that and let's get a pulse of our virtual room where everyone is. Give you a few seconds and I hope you guys are again successfully starting your day, drinking your coffee or tea or whatever your preferred drink is at this time. All right, so results are out. Really good mix of people in the room. 25%. So one-fourth of people in the room are in HR. So you can relate with this, with the challenges of engagement during this time of being remote or virtual working. Uh, 19% are in employee engagement and also 19% in planning and coordination. So this is going to be interesting. I'll heads up for Lawrence and Ram. I'll be asking you about events. How do you plan this now? This must probably be a very challenging time. 14% are in brand communication, 10% in functional leadership roles, and 14% in other roles. So really, really good mix of everyone coming in this room. In one way or another, we are responsible for the culture of our company. and to continue that collaboration effort. So let me ask, what are the hot events? Is that a TikTok challenge? Is that a sing along or acoustic night? I saw that in your example round, so I'll start with you. What do you think are the events that should carry on even if we're working remotely?
Yeah, I think for companies, the top events that we do annually are the Christmas parties, right? Valentine's Day activities, recognition nights, and I think that's still something that can be done virtually, even if we're in our homes. So just like for an example, the Emmy Awards or another award show, MTV Awards, they found a way to actually host the event virtually and have the presenters present from their homes. And it's something that you can adapt within the workforce actually. So Angie mentioned the acoustic night. So it's really
Yeah,
properly having the number one, the bandwidth of course. And if not, then let's try to do another solution like a pre-recorded video, and the Q&A can be the live portion in a way, and then the events would of course give you more cost savings now because you don't get to host an event in a actual venue, and you
that's
get to do it
true.
live online.
It's more
So
adjustment and cost on your side to learn the
right.
technology. Okay.
Right. So it's really just learning how you can do that. And actually, with Workplace, it's a very simple tool. I would just like to iterate that it's like Facebook. So it's similar to how you would go live in Facebook or even Instagram. In just one click of a button, you can go live and talk to the people of your organization. So I wouldn't say really that you need to cut off on your events, but actually now is the perfect time for you to roll them out because you need to be connected with your team members who are stuck in their homes and can't do anything about it, just to be safe. So, but think about it. What are the things that would really affect them, especially their wellness? It's
Mm-hmm.
important to boost their employee morale in these types of events, and really from there see how you can connect with them virtually. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Nice. So wellness is not optional. I think that's a clear message. It used to be something that, if you're a company that has the bandwidth to create wellness programs, go for it. But if you're not, then don't. But I think now we're seeing that one as an engagement activity, as a way to connect the workforce is essential. And when we talk about culture, what should you be mindful of, Lawrence? You talked about the transformation journey. Is there anything that people need to be cautious about when they're now building a culture virtually?
Yep. So and again, I'm taking this from all of the conversations that I've had with HR leaders, comms leaders, and even IT leaders over the past few months. And one of the common themes that I'm hearing out, and I'm just going to step back a bit here, is how do we now win the trust of our employees? Because you can run so many engagement programs, you can run all of the culture building programs that you want, but if the trust of your employees isn't as strong compared to the time when we were all working in the office, then that needs to be sorted out first. So
Mhm.
some of the questions would be that's very important for your employees, regardless of your industry, would be, what are the safety measures being implemented by the organization when we return back to work? How are you guys going to take care of my family if, let's say, something happens during this particular situation? So that's the first part. How do you win the trust of your employees back?
Okay.
Next would be, in terms of the changes that will take place over the next few months, what's the business direction going to be like? So those are the two things that you need to establish first. You need to win the trust of your employees back. I'm not assuming that you've lost them, but there's a need for us to strengthen the trust of our employees by making sure that safety is there, that making sure that they know for a fact that you will be taking care of their families as well, and that you understand the situation coming from where they are working from. Then next would be, what are the changes? Are there any gonna be any changes to the work setup, to the expectations from work? And what are the things that are expected from them, knowing that we're all working apart? So right after you've at least crossed out those two particular questions from your employees, then I would say that running the culture and engagement building programs would be so much more easier, knowing that the psychological part, the things that your employees are most worried about, are all gone, or at least has been significantly reduced by making sure that the communications around those two areas are clear. So
Right.
I'd say that get those two things out of the door first. Make sure that it's all cleared across the employees, regardless of their levels, and then from there you can easily plan out the things that would resonate very well with your employees.
Nice.
Mm.
So, Lo, what you're saying, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let's get the
Yep.
essentials covered first. You can't talk about all these nice wellness activities if there's no trust and the direction isn't clear. At Talent View, we
Yep.
call this brilliant at the basics. And I think
Yep.
that's also what I'm getting from you, Lawrence. But how do you measure this? So, last question before we move on to the next topic. How do you measure collaboration? So let's say that trust is there, wellness and safety has been established. How do I know that my team members or people in the organization are collaborating? Is there a way to measure this very tricky aspect of building a connected workforce? Feel free to answer, Ram or Lawrence.
Okay, let me take on that. A quick way for you to measure if your employees are actually engaged or if they need something more is actually ask them. Run surveys, run polls, ask them really how they're feeling and what are the things that you can improve on. And you can do this in various ways, even not with workplace, even with Google Forms if you're using that as your provider or in Microsoft. But really there is a thing called Gallup survey in which you ask 12 questions on the health in a way of your employees in terms of their productivity, even just asking if they have best friend at work because they need someone to talk to in terms of their growth or really personal conversations. But I think one way to measure if you're doing well in terms of your basics, your wellness activities, your communication and other activities is to run a survey and let your team know what they are feeling and how they are thinking in terms of the things that you will be rolling out or you have rolled out, and take that as a way to improve moving forward, especially that the times now are different.
Right. So there's no harm in asking directly from our team members. And I guess that last part you said, Ram, is so critical also. It's not just asking. I think a lot of companies, they're used to rolling out surveys, getting the pulse. But it's
Mhm.
doing something about the information you get or making that adjustment where companies are, I would say, struggling also. So what I'm hearing from you is don't hesitate to ask. Better today than, wait tomorrow, and then make that adjustment also very quickly. All right, so we'll move on to the next and final topic, and we'll move on to the next slide, which is empowering your people. So let me give you a quick stat first. We're saying here that companies and organizations that communicate effectively are 4.5 times more likely to retain the best employees. So I think this is a given, right? This data point just validates that. Of course, if you're more connected, if you feel more close to your leaders and to your teams, you're going to be more engaged and you're going to stay in the company. There's no reason for you to leave. So let's do a quick poll and try to see what are companies doing today? What are you guys doing today in terms of engaging with your teams and adapting to this new situation and new environment? Okay, so the question is, what engagement activities have you rolled out? Let's think about the past 6 months that we've all been working in some way, shape, or form in a remote manner. So whether that's virtual town halls, coffee sessions, or drinking sessions, I've seen a version of like an e-Numan night for companies, game
I've never heard of
nights.
that before. Inuman.
Wow, noted on that, Lawrence. And then you have fitness, you have employee recognition, or maybe even interest groups. So again, there's no right or wrong answer. We just want to get a pulse of the room. And maybe you discover some things also, like Lawrence hasn't heard of Inuman Nights. Maybe that's something you can implement if your team members are into that. right?
We'll do
So
that,
let's
love,
get
within our
everyone's
team.
responses. We'll do that within our team. And we'll put it under the part of brilliant at the basics.
Yes.
All right. So let's see. Awesome.
Virtual
70% are
town.
saying we've done town halls. We've done virtual town halls. Props to you. This is I know this is hard to pull off because you're not talking about maybe one or two presenters here. You're talking about multiple presenters announcing updates, giving feedback to the entire team. So if you're doing virtual town halls, if you're one of the 70%, that's absolutely awesome to hear. There's 25% that have done virtual coffee or drinking sessions, 30% that have done game nights. So this is just to give everybody ideas here. Fitness, 40%, fitness activities. So this one I'm hearing is also essential because when we're not seeing our team members on a daily basis, we still want to make sure that they're physically fit, they're in a position where they're healthy and their immune system can really withstand all the scares of a virus out there. So companies are slowly focusing on this too. 40% are working on employee recognition programs. And then there's 20% that are now into interest groups. So even at Talent you were seeing this. Some people share their passion for cooking, for being a plantito or a plantita. So we're seeing all these interest groups happening and it's just exciting. It's giving ideas to everyone. So thank you very much for that feedback. I'll continue on with the questions, and a question has just come in. This discussion is highly relevant and needed in these uncertain times. Collaboration is more of a necessity as an organization's tool to achieve goals and maintain connection with people. So this is more a comment coming from Angelina Carpio Reyes. Thanks very much for that comment. I would very, very much agree with this. So I wanted to ask a question to Ram. You shared about a case study earlier in past companies. How do you get employees to participate in this? Take note, this is on top of their work. Some people might be saying like, why will I participate in a cooking group or maybe in a fitness workout session if I already have so much work? What else? What's the compelling reason of a company to communicate with employees, Ram?
So from the previous use cases that I've shared earlier, I think it's important for the first that they really live the culture of the company. In that way, it wouldn't be as much of a burden to them because it's really a part of how they work on a daily basis.
Right.
So that's the first one, and then the second one, if you're planning to run interest groups, for example, make sure that it's something that your employees actually do, and it's not just something that you like to do. So if you're gonna do a club for a biking group or a hiking group, is it something that you people really do on a normal basis, or is it something that you would like them to do? So have also a clear understanding of your goals in terms of rolling out of the activities that you will be doing. And I would actually want to share my personal experience with Talentview for the onboarding. I think the onboarding experience with Talentview has been a very engaging one for me. Um, at first, I was actually scared because it's going to be a virtual thing. But I think now, even the hiring is online, and it's the first step for you to engage your team members from the very beginning that they were hired. So the experience for me was nerve wracking because how do I get to communicate, for example, with Lo or Ange or to my other teammates? How do I get close to them in a not physical environment? And luckily, with our workplace activity and onboarding, it was very seamless. And not to really promote the platform, but it's really a way of me connecting to you guys and to the rest of the organization and understanding really what are my needs and how that can be translated to the rest of my journey of my career with talent. So yeah, that's it for me.
That's a really interesting perspective, Ram. I didn't quite consider that onboarding and all these other processes in HR have to be translated into a virtual setup. So that alone might, prove to be a challenge for the HR leaders, but it's a challenge that we need to step up to because it's going to help to continue that engagement and continue that culture of collaboration that you were talking about. So I wanted to throw a question out to Lawrence as we wrap up on our topic and our webinar, right? I know I'm competing with lunch for everyone that's listening in PH time. Let's just talk quickly about leaders. What role do leaders play in all of this? Is this purely HR and comms? Do we say that HR is responsible for getting everybody on board? Or can leaders play a very specific and pointed part in this entire collaboration effort? Lo?
Sure. I think the very first thing that leaders should prioritize is being present, especially during these activities. It's an opportunity for you to be, I would say, not just known in the organization, but for all of your employees to know you as a person. I think that's the very foundation of trust as well. If they know the things that you like, the things that you're interested about, the more comfortable they would be to share the same information, share ideas, and even feedback, good or bad, that would be helpful in growing the organization. So, like from our case, my favorite engagement activity would be our passion hour. But it's essentially a place where you get to learn about the things that your leaders, employees are interested about. And I think that's one way to build connection. That's one way to replicate some of the corridor conversations or the coffee conversations that we would normally have when we're meeting face to face. But now that's all gone at the moment. Being present, being highly visible, and being highly involved are some of the key priorities that I would really recommend. The more present you are, the more visible you are, the more ideas would flourish in the organization, and the more people would, be more comfortable to speak up, share their ideas, and share their feedback to you as a leader.
Sounds so simple, right? But I know that for business leaders that are taking on other tasks, it is hard to do. So what I'm hearing from you, Lo, is the first thing that leaders have to do is just be there. Just show up. A big part of the game is just showing up. And for those that are just hearing about Passion Hour for the first time, wanted to share what it is very quickly. It's giving employees a voice. So every time, once a week, we have a Passion Hour, and one or two people from our team will be given time to share their passion. So whether that's surfing or plants or cooking or taking pictures, it's their time. And it's not just giving visibility to the people that are sharing their passion, but as Lawrence pointed out, it's giving visibility to the leaders. The leaders showing up, giving them an opportunity to show up and connect with their team members is a really great thing to have. So thank you for sharing that, Lawrence and Ram. So I wanted to share a statistic, the final one, as we go into wrap up, 80% global adoption rates. So on Workplace, if you're considering to use Workplace, this is the number that you need to see, or this is the number that you can expect. 80% on average are adopting the platform because they already know how to use the functionalities of Facebook. So it's not that difficult for them to take up and pick up Workplace. So I guess that's the challenge also with platforms, right? When thinking about technology, it's not just about rolling out something that's easy on bandwidth. It's also about rolling out something that's easy to use for team members so that the adjustment period or the learning curve is not so much. So this is going to be a big consideration for organizations that are still looking to collaborate or find a platform that works for them. All right, so let's wrap up. Are there any other questions or comments? There's another question that just come in. So let's take this one. One of the most difficult to overcome at this time with regards to collaboration is the difficulty for leaders to take on the new role of leading collaborators. So how does one develop collaborative traits when everyone is adjusting and coping? So one question, how are leaders doing this?
So maybe I'll take on that very, very quickly.
Sure.
We all know that we're essentially navigating through in a situation where essentially leaders, employees are essentially navigating through a new work environment. So I think the very first part, at least from what we're getting as well from the leaders that we've been talking to, is really admitting that, hey, this is the first time that I've encountered the situation as well. I don't have all of the answers, but these are the plans that I would recommend moving forward? Is this something that you'd agree in, or what are your suggestions, knowing that these are the plans that we have in place? So I think it's really opening up that space where people would have a voice, voice not just to give their feedback, but also to share their concerns, the things that are really, I would say, pressing, at least from their perspective. So I think the very first foundation when we talk about collaboration would always be centered around trust and fostering that sense of camaraderie within the business. It doesn't really scale overnight, but you need to start with the teams that you work with. Again, it's really admitting that, hey, I don't have all of the answers. These are the plans that we're trying to at least do in the next few weeks. I'd really love to hear your suggestions and how we could make this better. So opening up the floor would really be essential, and making sure that you're listening closely to the things that your employees are sharing.
Nice. So it's not just really a skill, but just the time and effort to
Yep.
be there and
Yep.
to give that time and effort. Okay, so final remarks. Just some messages or final things that you want to remind our audience about today. What do they need to know about collaboration? Ram, go for it. And as we're giving our final remarks, we're just also flashing feedback. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this webinar. But I'll give the floor to Ram first, just to give some final notes to our audience today. What are the things they need to remember if they're just going to take away one or two things from this entire session?
Yeah, so thanks, Ange. So I'd like to thank first our attendees for joining us today in the conversation, and hopefully you got to pick up a few notes. But I'd like to reiterate that collaboration, regardless of the platform or the tool that you're using, comes within the teams that you are handling or in the organization. So it's important for you to understand first what your team members need before you roll out anything. And once you decide that you want to give out or serve more your community or your organization with a better tool, then find a tool that would be perfect for your team members without zero training at all. Very intuitive. And I would like to say that that's Workplace. So with Workplace, you get to communicate not just for engagement activities, but for productivity purposes as well. So you get to collaborate and foster a sense of teamwork within your organization in a quicker manner, and into a more, as Lawrence mentioned, build that camaraderie between your team leaders and the team members at hand. So, there.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ram. Lawrence, over to you.
Thank you, Ange, and thank you as well, Ram. I'd say that if you're gonna focus on cultural transformation, especially during this time, try to understand the needs of your employees, as Ram has shared. And our main message here is less is more. So if, let's say, your employees are using 10 to 15 apps, if you're able to reduce that by at least 25%, 30%, or even 50%, then we're pretty much confident that it's going to help increase the productivity of your employees. So maybe if there's one figure that I would recommend, that would either be, reducing the number of applications, or making sure that when you implement a platform, the adoption rates would be so much higher for your organization. So those are some of the key metrics that I would recommend to prioritize, especially during this time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Law. Again, thank you to everyone. On behalf of TalentView, I want to thank everybody for participating in this Webinar Wednesday. Please use that hashtag or hashtag TalentView Learning when you're sharing out on social media. And you can continue the conversations. Just a quick reminder for everyone, everything we shared today, recording and presentation slides, will be sent to you. So don't worry about that. You'll get a copy of that. And you can continue the conversations with us through our other HR resources at talentview.asia, our website, or our LinkedIn page, TalentView Inc. Or you can also email us at learning@talentview.asia. So thank you so much again to everyone for this feedback, for participating, for asking your questions. Please reserve your slot. Also, there's an upcoming webinar that we're hosting on September 30, Going Digital, the now normal of talent acquisition, for all of us who are in HR and continuously hiring. So I'll leave everyone with our QR codes. You can connect with us on LinkedIn. Please do. That's Ange Vera, Lawrence Villanueva, and Ram Reyes from TalentView.
Yes.
If you connect
Please
with
add us on LinkedIn.
you have any questions, we can continue that conversation and ask any questions that, we'd love to help you on. So thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we really appreciate you coming and joining us for this webinar Wednesday. Thank you so much. Bye.
Enjoy your
Thank
lunch.
you, everyone. Bye.
Goodbye.